So as part of my master's degree in Buddhist studies, I did a month-long retreat.
Mm, of
And in that retreat, there were people who had like kind of weird experiences.
course.
And, you know, the Buddhist attitude is don't worry about it, don't make a big deal out of it. And I find that often in like more metaphysical spaces, people like you're prepping for like you're prepping 6 weeks for a ceremony, and then you get there and there's a lot of hopes and dreams hung on what happens during that ceremony. You know what I mean? Um, the the pressure that somebody can put on themselves to have an experience or to hang a lot of meaning and expectations upon an interpretation of a vision or an interpretation of an experience.
That is a really powerful thing that you said because that's a thing. And sometimes when the integration process goes awry, I'm actually writing about that. I'm going to put out a book soon about the integrating the visionary experiences specifically because meaning isn't inherent. In all of life, meaning is made, it's ascribed. So, especially so with these experiences. So, for example, like with the story earlier, this woman believed she received the message, you are a healer. Well, she could have made that mean quit her job and become a Reiki teacher, you know but
Yeah. Yeah.
I reminded her that what that really means is she is empowered to heal herself. She doesn't need to look outside of her for the answers anymore. She
Right.
can and should work on her own self and improve her own quality of life and way of being and health and wholeness and her internal environment. So what we do with that vision is relevant. I have seen a lot of integration cases come into my practice
Hmm.
who um, made one meaning and it became destructive. They either became fixated on it and used it as an
Hmm.
excuse not to live well. For example, I'm really a species from this star, and that's why I
Yeah.
can't like function as a
Hmm.
human or have normal relationships. Like actually, it's because your communication pattern is really it blows, right? But we can work on that.
Right.
But you have to kind of reframe a little bit. You are also a human on Earth now, so you go ahead and be an alien if it makes you happy. But if you're not happy, it's not working for you.
Right.
It's not working if it's
Right.
disabling your ability to function. Or in some cases, I've seen people receive this tremendously beautiful message that, you're in oneness with all things. That makes you an extension of all that is. That's God, right? You are this entity that has all the
Right.
creative power and potential for your life to create as a God would. And so that can mean, oh my goodness, I need to be responsible for my thoughts and behaviors because I'm creating a universe out of them. This is an amazing opportunity to create the reality I really want, one made of joy and love and all the good stuff that makes me happy and feel good. Now, we all know what the spiritual qualities are. Every wisdom tradition says the same thing. But that can also mean I'm going to exact vengeance because if I am the penultimate of power in the cosmos, that means whatever I do is justified. And so I'm going to go be vengeful and spiteful because that's my prerogative. Okay, that's unintegrated. That's not a very good meaning that was created. Let's reframe that a little bit. But I think
Right.
sometimes the relevance and yes, the pressure to have an extraordinary experience is sometimes too much. A lot of times people come
Hmm.
into medicine ceremony and they are really wanting that ego death, or they're really wanting an insane visionary experience and they think there's something wrong with them when it doesn't happen. But that's actually
In 1 hour or less, give me ego death. Right.
right. Exactly. And I like to remind there's this whole thing in the spiritual environment the last few years that I've seen that the ego is evil and must be punished, and we can't be enlightened beings unless we get rid of it. But the ego is, as a reminder, the part of self that identifies that there is a self living a life in a world, and this is necessary and good. Also, it's about working with
Right.
this part of yourself, not destroying it so you can become something else. Because, if you imagine moving on from this life and transitioning into another lifetime or beyond this lifetime, whatever it is that your belief structure supports, then even then you will yet have a personality and a self-awareness. Is that also not out, right? So even
Right.
death is not an escape from this idea of self-identification. And that's not a bad thing. Like we need that too, So
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
obsession with the vision, the obsession with ego death, the obsession with I need to have this extraordinary experience for it to mean something. I love when I get a client who says there's something wrong with me. I've gone to 3 ayahuasca ceremonies and nothing happened. Well, that's probably not all your fault because you don't really understand the process. But also, let's unpack what's really going on here. And it turns out they had a tremendous learning experience. It just didn't look the way they thought it would. And being able to
Right.
put it back together, little pieces, and say, oh, actually, you gained this huge healing. You gained this tremendous life transformation. Let's focus on that and not get fixated on what you thought you saw or didn't see.
Right. Right. Yeah, I really love what you're saying too about being a co-creator of your healing because I think that, it's not only like, teach somebody to fish,
Yeah,
right? But it's also like I feel like a lot of the reason a lot of, healing practitioners get poo-pooed by other people is other people see them as being extremely highly egoic to be
that's
like,
fair.
"I can fix you, I can save you," you
That's there
know?
too. That
Yeah.
exists. And actually, those ego traps, which are common and many more profuse than you might even imagine. How can I say this in a way that's tactful? Assholes abound in every profession, right? And in a position of power, sometimes people are attracted to the leadership role that bears power rather than the potential to create a force for good in the world. That's actually why I'm in the publishing process right now. I have a call with my publisher today about the book that I wrote like years ago about that topic, literally called How to Choose Your Shaman. Because how are we supposed to know if a leader is a quality healer or if they're really just like
Right.
a cult leader and they're self-serving with their gifts and their specialness? Which look, there are incredible healers out there who are also not good leaders, like at all. And there are great
Yeah.
leaders who maybe aren't that great of a healer, and there's everything in between. And who can know if that's not your zone of expertise? Who could ever know that? And especially when people are vulnerable and they're looking for help, why should they have to? So the book is like a series of questions you can ask and like how to listen for the answer so that you can figure it out without having to know anything. Keep it simple.
Oh my god, I love the title. You know why? It reminds me of How to Train Your Dragon.
That is
How to
so funny.
Choose
I'm
Your
watching that later
Shaman.
with the kids.
That's amazing.
I love it.
So, when you talked about your, like, secondary moment where basically everything stopped and you crashed your car and all that. I love how you talked about something you'd never done before, which was to sit still and listen. And how I don't know, I just kinda wish you'd go into that because I think that's so powerful. We're in a society where people aren't bored anymore. 24/7, you can have somebody talking or singing or a whole band playing in your ear as you're sleeping all night long. Yeah, can you speak a little more to that?
Yeah, it's probably one of the hardest things I've done in my life. And I'm not generally an overstimulated person. I don't really watch much TV, and I like my silence too. I spend a lot of time in my internal environment. Even then, I'd done everything right, right? I worked really hard for everything. So if you work really hard, you can achieve all your dreams, right? And so I worked
Yeah.
really hard for everything and I was always doing something. I was busy, I was effective, I was productive. I had two or three jobs at a time at any time. I was also trying to juggle life stuff and still walk the dog. And it was it was facilitated by pain. Unfortunately, my shoulder was all banged up, my ribs are squished, I was hurting. So I couldn't, but I knew that I could if I really wanted to get up and go to work, get up and go do something. But I chose to just sit and talk to my body and recover and take the time to watch my internal environment, my thoughts, my inner dialogue, and start interacting with that inner dialogue more aggressively. I think we all have an inner dialogue that gets really loud in uncomfortable spaces, and the loudness is rarely
Yeah.
goodness. It usually says all kinds of
Yeah.
things like, "What the hell are you doing with yourself? Look at you're such a failure. You can't get anything right. How could you have messed this up? This was so dumb." Like all of this rhetoric starts pouring through. And that's normal, especially for people who are high achievers that have a lot of this like must perform type of energy, right? And so sitting still and looking at that was not cute and it wasn't easy, but it was
Yeah.
so worth it. I got to take an inventory of what was really in there. And because my obsession is the beliefs and the identity level, I'm like, okay, I need to reframe something hardcore in the like foundational strata, that infrastructure underneath my personality that's causing this thinking like this, which is normal, by the way. It's totally normal. It happens to everyone. But if we
Right.
permit it or not is another case, right? And we can adjust that language. And that sitting still wasn't just time to heal my body, it was time to heal my mind and the patterns that had brought me to a place of feeling like I had failed. For me, that was, I know it sounds probably a little silly to some, but it was like soul crushing for me, failure. I couldn't tolerate it. I
Doesn't
worked hard
sound
and been
silly at
successful,
all.
everything. And to have failed
Yeah.
so spectacularly in every area of my life at the same time felt like so unfair. Like, how did I mess up that bad? What did I do so
Mhm.
wrong? What was in me that was so buggered that that happened in my life? But I realized that thankfully I had the insight at the time from who knows where, couldn't have been from my own inner dialogue at that point, to say, okay, this is your clean slate, which means you need to wipe away these personality qualities. You need to wipe away this character that you've been playing out. You need to wipe away this person that you think you are in order to allow something new to blossom in this space. And that whole transformation moment was pretty short-lived, but it was intense. It definitely included a lot of rigorous self-inventory that was a little brutal, but it gave me that
Yeah,
opportunity. And that happens in transition spaces where we're confronted with old patterns that caused our old life, right? We're mostly living out of automatic. We're not really making
right.
choices, even when we think we are. So when we make decisions, do something scary, different, a big change, right? That's always going to be unnerving. It's always going to bring up the crap. It's always going to bring up the doubt. It's always going to bring up the fear. And what we do with that, how we observe it, and how we can maybe work with it and then shift it into something else, make it empowering energy rather than contractionary. Yeah, who am I to think I can pull this off? Like, I'm just going to give up and go crawl into a hole and go back into what I know already and what's safe, versus, yeah, who do I think I am? Why not? Why not me?
I love it.
Turning that into that empowering energy, I think became a skill that has served me very much ever since.
Yeah. 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 In quiet spaces, you can actually hear yourself talk. I think that's, I
Well,
think
in the
that's
Buddhist
what makes them
retreats,
so painful. Sorry, go ahead.
absolutely. Yeah, in the Buddhist retreats, a lot of that, especially the silence retreats I mean, it's incredible the BS that comes up from within.
I talked with somebody recently who said they went on a 1 week negative self-talk fast. And it was like, whew,
Absolutely.
that you must, I don't know how you can, there's so much like every day, like when you get down and are aware of it and you're just like, yeah, it's
Right?
really it's fascinating. Hi, it's Karen. I wanted to remind you guys to go to secondwindwomen.com/community dash offers to see all the offers from our guests for free meetups, discounts on products, consults, etc. So do check that out and don't forget that we are here to support you. We can help you with Google Ads, we can help you with websites, we can help you with Facebook and Instagram ads, we can help you with Google reviews. There's so many digital ways we can support your business and we're happy to help. Just reach out to me and my team. So how can people connect with you? And is your book like does it have a release date?
Yeah, a couple days ago, but I'm going with the flow.
That was a release?
It hasn't publishing process, I've learned a lot in the last couple years about that. It's not what I thought it was. Yeah, I'm learning. We're always learning, right? But it'll be out on Amazon soon. Everything go runs through my website. I have a ton of media. I love education and media. I'm constantly giving away free information. It's all over my YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all of it. But the best way, the hub is just my website, catrambo.com. Cat-Rambo. Cat like meow and Rambo, yes, like the Stallone movie, cat-rambo.com, and everything is in there. You'll see.
Fantastic. And we will link it and we will link all
Oh,
your
thank you.
socials
I
too
appreciate that.
so people can find you.
Can I ask you a
Thank
question?
you.
What
Huh? Yeah, ask me a
what
question.
is you've talked to a lot of people who have gone through these transition spaces. What do you think is the number one impetus for change? Why do people that you've seen have made this like decision to change everything? What drives that?
I think it's pain. I think it's pain, regardless of if it's, a car accident or getting fired from a job or getting so fed up and realizing that you're not going to get the promotion that was promised you. I think it's just all in all pain and people taking control of their life and their situation in a way that makes sense, right? Because you can't really control much. You can kind of steer the sled a little bit,
Right.
but um, yeah, I really think it's when people are pain is a great motivator, because nobody wants to feel pain. Everybody wants to feel good.
Right.
Yeah, I really think it's pain.
No doubt.
Because you can love something, but what's gonna make you make a huge change
Right.
to do that thing that you love,
You
right?
have to get
It's
uncomfortable. Right.
yeah,
I hope that
yeah, where you have
changes.
to say,
I
"Is
would
it
I
worth
would
it?"
love to see a culture based around passion, not passion that sprang out of agony, but passion that came out of just purpose and joy and inspiration. Because so many times these gifts were always there. We just didn't really
Yeah.
understand them, but maybe that's what we need. I noticed in the past a lot of my clients would come in because they're dealing with breakups or anxiety or depression or fear and the internal issues. But now a lot of my clients are coming in because they're looking for that next level. They want more. They want
That's
bigger.
great.
I hope that
Great.
that becomes a little bit more predominant over this change scape that happens with career. That would be interesting.
Agreed, agreed. And I have to tell you, so I did a like a month-long training with this Italian teacher at one point, and it was right when Luciano Pavarotti died. And we were in class and he said, "We're going to have a minute of silence for Luciano Pavarotti because he brought so much emotion." I'm getting teared up talking about
My
it.
hair all went up.
And I was like, how incredible is that? That like he was obviously a virtuoso singer, but the real thing is emotion,
Mm.
right? And I think that's the basis of the pain, right? The pain that causes the transformation is you emotionally feel, like something's got to change, you know?
So
Yeah, I
interesting.
guess it just depends on how deep you go with it or how you look at it.
Well, maybe, yeah, how you look at it. It looks like it's a good
Yeah,
time to reframe our perspective on what pain is for. We
right.
study Buddhism, we talk about, the nature of suffering is like a third of the content of Buddhist
Yeah.
teachings, right? And
It's a big part of the
right.
health deal. Yeah.
But maybe that's not something that we need to avoid. Maybe it's something we need to like take a closer look at before it gets worse and figure out what to do with it. Like, where is the inspiration underneath it, you know?
I mean, pain is really I'm reminded of this uh practice that was taught by Thich Nhat Hanh. He is a Thai monk who taught Mahayana Buddhism. One of his exercises he did was teaching people to take their negative emotions and thank them
Love
and
that.
say, "I see you, jealousy. Thank you for trying to protect me. I understand your motivation, right? And it's okay, like I'm going to be okay." And just the way that you can look at pain as a gift because it's literally telling you to change direction.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know about knee pain, but you know,
Hey, definitely change direction. I
totally.
hear that so much. Recently, I guess a while ago now, I recently went through a fire dance process, which is like a 3-day fasting, dancing. It's an incredible experience. And the theme that came up for me was about the North Fire is related to the goddess Durga, which was about sacred rage. And there was
Mhm.
something in there about how we get very hung up on this low vibration, high vibration, don't want to get any bad mood, right? But
Yeah,
that's not whole either. And
right.
yes, I do think living in a state of anger is not good, but experiencing anger needs to be befriended too, because it was said something that came to me. It was just like so perspective changing for me, which is that anger may be the emotion that loves you the most because it's the one that tells you to have a boundary. It's the one that expands
Wow.
your boundaries and helps you protect yourself and know when it's time to do so and gives you the energy and the fight to say no and to have your boundary. I'm like, wow, what would we do without anger?
Thanks so much for joining us today, Kat. I had a great time talking to you. And like you said, so many awesome, profound things. I really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you for having me. I love your mission and I love what you're doing, and I'm so excited to be a part of it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Wow, that was so much fun. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. We'll see you next time on Second Wind Women. Let's make your second wind the strongest yet. Thanks.